Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Today is Monday, March 9, 2009. My name is Alejandra Mendoza and I'm with Barbara Lemmen to have a conversation about treatment practices in photograph conservation. This is part of a series of interviews I'm conducting to photograph conservators as part of my advanced residency program research, in which I intend to investigate and describe the current state of treatment practices in our field. I would like to follow a format for the interview in which I will begin asking you questions about your experience and the treatments that you perform here in this lab, followed by questions addressing specific treatment topics, to end up with some questions about training and education and the future challenges of the field in this topic. So, to begin, I would like to ask you, could you please tell me your name, your job title and affiliation?
Barbara Lemmen. I'm a senior conservator of photographs at the Conservation Center for Art and Historic Artifacts in Philadelphia. And the lab was established in 1977 by Marilyn Widener. And let's see, I've been here for just over 8 years.
Mm-hmm. And before that, were you working in?
Before that, I was in private practice for about the same length of time in New Hampshire. And at the beginning of that time period, I was also, just before that, I did a 2-year fellowship with Jose Arraca in his studio in Connecticut. And prior to that, I was in the Woodpack program, the majoring in photograph conservation.
Thank you, Barbara. So to get us started in the topic of treatment, I would like to ask you, how do you define treatment?
I always think of conservation treatment as an intervention in the life of the object, and to kind of differentiate it from just kind of a passive intervention such as housing or improving the environment, which is often all an object needs and very beneficial. Think of treatment as more of working to return an object to kind of a previous state in its lifetime.
In terms of need, how do you determine the need of treatment when an object needs treatment?
There's kind of a couple aspects to that. It's certainly consult with the owner or curator about the object, because they often have a lot more knowledge about the object than I do, and I need their input. Also, their needs and desires for the object are a component of the decision, and get a lot of information from just examining the object to learn about its materials and the photographer and its history, and also do research. Generally we'll do a little bit of photo history research or technological research, and sometimes we're able to do analytical research before we work on an object. I mean, that's true across the board in photograph conservation. I feel like I can learn a lot about the object before I start, and also what I propose for it is based a lot on what's possible in the field too. So it helps to know kind of a broad background of treatment that's been done in conservation so far.
And could you describe to me like the types of photographs that come to the center, a little bit more on how does that...
How does that impact on what I do? Wow, what do we get? Our members are fine art institutions and archives and universities and private collectors and families. We take work from all kinds of owners and institutions. Generally, we tend to get material then from those kinds of collections rather than fine art material. I mean, that is a smaller component of what we see. We get archival photographs, prints. Lately I've been seeing a lot more negatives, which is very interesting to me, film and glass. We see a lot of family photographs, specific types, developed out prints and negatives, and lots of charcoal enlargements, convex and flat. Sometimes we have runs on those for over several months. Did you ask me about the scope of the treatment too?
No, but...
Okay, I'm looking at the questions that you provided ahead of time. I can say a little about the types of materials we get. We also get case photographs, but less frequently, including tin types, amber types, and daguerreotypes. So mostly prints, Sometimes color. We've gotten a few contemporary photographs, digitally produced media in, and I know there's some questions on that later, so I'll go for now. You know, what the scope of the treatment, I was going to ask you what your kind of definition of minor, moderate, and major was. But the scope of the treatment is we do from anything from what we would call minor surface cleaning. I would consider that, or possibly just what I like to categorize as restoration, just in painting, maybe overpainting of some mold stains, and we probably do as much minor as we do major treatment, and major would be would involve more time and more changes to the object, like aligning or washing or unmounting, and I know there's more questions on that later.
So the range of treatments is really from the minor, let's say from the tear repair to a lining, let's say it goes the whole range of treatment.
We get materials. I said we didn't get work on a lot of fine art photographs. They're a small percentage of what we see. But we see we've seen we see all types of materials and all types of conditions because of the range of sources for the material that come into the lab, and because of the number of photograph conservators we have and their skill level, we can deal with all kinds of materials. So we're very lucky that way. It's one aspect I enjoy about the center.
And Barbara, could you describe me the methodology you follow for a treatment, or since you're asked to perform it until it's done? I don't know, how does that work?
I'm not sure what you mean by methodology.
Well, the steps you follow before you propose a treatment, and then while you're doing it, do you do any evaluation of the treatment before or during or after the treatment?
An object comes in and we'll always talk with the client. Either they'll bring the object in person, so we'll consult with them, or they'll send it and we'll talk to them on the phone to see what their goals for the object are, and we'll talk about what the possibilities are, and their goals for it will have an impact on the treatment. I could talk a little bit more about that. Then I'll examine the object and learn as much as I can from it, and then usually do a little bit of research for things that I don't understand, not familiar with. Often call colleagues to get advice on treatments, possible treatments. I mean, it's not possible for one person to have worked on every kind of material, or even be, although we like to think we could be, up to date on everything that's going on, especially as the field's expanding. So make a few phone calls, write the proposal, and then the client has to approve that. And then often as you're working on an object, things come up, and we always contact the client and talk to them about any changes that have to be made in our proposal, other than very minor changes to, say, materials or techniques. And then treat the object. There's always documentation before we start working, besides the written photo documentation before and after. Is that what you were thinking of? You said before I started methodology. Okay.
And once you're done, do you evaluate the treatment visually, or and also with the client, or how do you have any?
Oh, that's interesting. We will do photo documentation afterwards, and often we do it in between, and that's up to the discretion of the conservator. If there's going to be a major change or something unexpected happens, which is not uncommon with photographs, we'll document that. Excuse me. We often do talk to our colleagues in the lab, not just the other photograph conservators, but we have the advantage of having a lot of paper conservators and book conservators. So if there's any aspect of the treatment that's not just individual to photo conservation, we can consult them. And I'll often talk about treatments afterwards, saying, oh, this is how it went, what would you have done differently, or let's take a look at it. And we're always very curious about what other people are doing in the lab. And that's a great advantage to being in a lab. I really enjoy the environment for that reason. All the give and take and discussions. I mean, we don't have a formal way of evaluating them. I think that the fact that the photo conservation field is, very close and friendly is to our advantage, because if you have, something went particularly well and you've got a new technique to share, or you would like something to go better the next time, you feel like you can always talk to your colleagues about it, call someone up or meet them at a conference, give something as a tip, put a problem out there and work on it. So that's what we do. Mm-hmm.
We have been partially in the question about degree or extent.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to ask you formally, how do you define a minor, moderate, and major treatment?
Oftentimes I would say it would be based on the time that the treatment takes. That's how we would probably use those terms.
Mm-hmm.
Although not necessarily. It's also to the extent that the object is changed.
Mm-hmm.
Minor treatment, like I said, would always be something like surface cleaning or maybe overpainting, where you really aren't having a great impact or changing the object at all. Yeah, mending tears would come into that category. But a major treatment would be something where you might have to alter the original format of the object, or change some of the materials, say unmount something and remount it, or you wouldn't actually be able to incorporate all of the original mount components. And again, that also ends up taking a considerable amount of time, but often in-painting takes a lot of time, but I wouldn't consider that a major treatment. I'm sorry. I wasn't going to glance at my notes. I guess that's pretty much what I was thinking of. Also, we often would say a major treatment would be one in which there was a great deal of improvement in the appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's certainly how people outside the field would define it. If they bring something in that they consider as in poor shape, and you give them a dramatic visual improvement, even if it was just through washing,
Mm-hmm.
They would consider that a major treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's interesting.
yeah, I think so.
Uh-huh.
And then maybe in a photograph that had one flaw, if you were able to improve that, someone would see that as a huge leap in improvement in that photograph, and would consider that major too. So, but I think conservators consider it possibly, how much of a change there is
Mm-hmm.
structurally or aesthetically, rather than aesthetically.
And do you consider the creation and application of secondary housing as treatment or not?
I've asked a colleague about that. By secondary housing, you would consider a mat or a box. Is it something that's not attached to the object?
I was thinking also in hinging, for example,
Mm-hmm.
that coming from hinging to a box, to something that's completely loose. So I have found
Mm-hmm.
that there's some different opinions in.
I would say if you include hinging, yes, there'd be a little bit difference. Outside of hinging, I'd say no. Although in school we would have included that under conservation. I think of that more as in the preservation category now, because there's no change to the object, although certainly it improves its stability and how it can be cared for. But hinging certainly would be, and in general we try to avoid hinging with photographs
Mm-hmm.
where at all possible, because there's often some detrimental effects from that. So I would consider that a treatment, although it's except for exceptional objects, it's done by our framer here.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that selecting housing over treatment is always a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if an object needs treatment, to select just housing over that, and that you do that in consultation with the owner, and sometimes that does happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we do a lot of custom housings, and certainly That's something that the field has really worked on, proving those with sealed packages and non-adhesive attachment methods over the years. I think we've really made great progress. I'm very happy with what we can offer people these days.
Thank you, Barbara. Now that you were speaking about the changes, I would like to go to the topic of transformation. So in your observation of the work that has been done here, or also in the field historically, I wanted to ask you, do you perceive any changes on the way treatments are performed, or any major changes in the field?
Oh, of course. I look forward to reading all of everyone else's answers on this too. Photograph conservation has gotten to be much more thoughtful, and some people would use the word conservative, since I entered it. And that's just a fact of our growing up and gaining more information. I mean, we understand better the impact of our treatment on the objects, although we don't understand nearly as much as we'd like to. So that's just made us, more thoughtful, to hesitate more to do treatments that we might have done in the past. So I think we're all more conservative. Certainly people would say that there was a range of among photograph conservators, but I don't think that that's problematic. And I know there's another question to that extent. Just to say, we just have so much more information, analytical methods, materials available, yeah, that's about it. So changes, I don't know if you wanted specific ones. I mean, if you want specific ones, less washing than when we automatically washed photographs pretty much when I was in private practice. Now that all the work, especially at the advanced residency program, on surface changes, I'm more hesitant to do that. And also, we're not sure about the benefits of it in many cases. That's again research and also information that we can get from industry. But much less often we unmount and mount photographs, again because we understand the changes that are going to go on, and we also increasingly understand the impact that the environment, the benefits of the environment. I mean, when I give workshops, which I do a few times a year, I always try to hammer that into people's heads that you work on your environment, put your money into the environment. I would love to work with your collection, but this is what you need to do for the best benefit for everything. And often it's going to take care of some of the issues that you think might be treatment problems.
Do you perceive, I would go further to this question, do you perceive changes in the level of intervention?
Yes, I think it's gone down, or just changed focus. Changed focus to more preventative, and that's good. I mean, that's where the more money is available for preventative conservation, for say controlling the environment and rehousing, and maybe some minor treatments like flattening and surface cleaning, really making collections more stable and more usable, and doing less major treatments. But objects that still require major treatments, we will evaluate them but won't hesitate to do them. We're not against them, to say.
Thank you. My next question is about the perception of a photograph. So I wanted to ask you, do you consider that the condition, the perception of how a photograph should look in terms of its condition has changed through time? Like a patina, like we see some certain iterations as inherent to photographs. Do you think it has?
Oh, it's so dependent on the situation. But I think overall it has to the benefit of photographic materials. Like I said, we're better educated about what's going on in terms of photographs and deterioration and materials, and I think we're able to educate clients too, so that they're more accepting about what they would have originally seen as defects in something, and we're able to offer them more alternatives, such as preventative conservation. I also understand from people who work more with fine art photographs in their practices, that sometimes the standards have gotten higher, and I think that may be due to just exposure, the digital world. People see so many images that when they have a photograph, they may have much higher expectations for it, because it is possible digitally to see potentially how it could look. I would see that. I think that people see, especially people who work with photograph collections, really have a much deeper understanding of them than they used to, and really like understand the whole history and of the object more than they used to. I don't have much more to say.
Thank you. I would like to ask you, in your observation of the work that's done here, it has to do a little bit with your previous answer, and the work that's done in other type of institutions like museums or private practice. How do you consider there's differences among these practices or coincidences? How do you see that work in relationship to yours?
We do. I see some differences, but I would say it's more in slight variations in people's treatment methods or extent of treatment, and I think that I saw a much greater difference among individuals and institutions when I first started, and again I think that's just increased education, communication among conservators. That's about it. I said we have the advantage of being a small community, close community. There are certainly, I won't go into that, politics. So I think that it's kind of leveled the field in a way, in that almost everyone has access to the same kinds of information and uses it. I really feel we're a very highly skilled field right now.
That's good.
And we always like to get better. We're all very curious, but we're doing well. We're on the right trajectory.
And I would also like to ask you, talking about these external influences or relationships, about market. So I would like to hear your opinion. Do you consider that markets, values or trends influence treatment decision making or treatment performance?
It certainly does. I would say more in the extent of treatment and the choice rather than what the conservator proposes. And I think, and that's the way it should be, and that's the way it's always been. I don't work here at the Conservation Center with a lot of material that has market value. Usually has historical value or sentimental value to a family, but certainly overall, what is done from what we actually propose to a client is certainly affected by their value of the photograph. Often we will, if there's any, if the client has any reason not to take our first proposal, our best proposal, we will often offer alternatives such as housings, facsimiles that can reach the final result of a stable, safe photograph, but at a lower cost, and maybe do just some minor treatment. Sometimes, and often with objects, there isn't one clear treatment path for it, so we can give alternatives, and the client may choose the one that's cheaper, and we understand the realities of the field. Certainly, I understand that there is some worry that market value of objects is putting pressure on conservators to do treatments, certain kinds of treatments. But I get from talking to colleagues, I feel that they make the ethical choice. I'm really proud of how our field is doing in that way. That's as much as I can speak to you.
Thank you. My next questions are related to specific treatment topics, and I would like to begin with daguerreotype cleaning. and since you know, this was one of the earliest treatments performed to photographs. It has been done from a long time ago by photographers themselves, curators, conservators, and the methodologies and materials have changed through time considerably. So I would like to hear your opinion about this treatment, about the performance of this treatment nowadays.
Nowadays? I think that we're lucky that we have so much research and practical experience in it, and I feel that when done by an experienced conservator, that washing in ammoniated water is very safe and really kind of a self-limiting process. Great for removing accretions and sometimes minor tarnish. Electrocleaning I also feel is very effective, but the outcome is very dependent on the practitioner and their experience. And in electrocleaning, the unique composition and history of the object really comes into play and affects makes it less predictable. So I feel that decision is something that has to be to do electrocleaning has to be made very carefully by the conservator who's going to be doing it, and the owner, and that really on a case-by-case basis. So I think that there are many cases in which it should be done. So I'm not against it.
Just going a little bit deeper into this.
Sure.
When do you think it should be done? Like, what are the factors that would define that it's
when it should be done? No, I think it has to be an individual case. I don't think it ever should be done. Has to be done for an object. Even if there's often ways to gain information photographically from an object that appears to be very obscured. It's really, electrocleaning is for tarnish, but there's so many reasons that you might want to avoid doing it, and we always hope that there'll be a better, a completely safe, predictable treatment in the future. I mean, I just know talking to people who do electrocleaning, and I don't have the experience to do it. I do not. I will wash daguerreotypes. That it doesn't always go perfectly. It's a conservation treatment. They don't always go perfectly. It just seems to be much more dramatic because we value daguerreotypes are so precious to us in a way that other things don't seem to be. So.
Thank you. My next topic is about chemical intensification, and by this I mean treatments like bleach and redevelopment, for example, or others that use photographic chemistry to enhance the image of a print. So, like this treatment, like daguerreotype cleaning, is also one of the oldest performed in the field before conservators were actually trained, and it has also some research been done in the past about the viability of this treatment into photographs. So I would like to hear your opinion about it. What do you think, if it could be done to photographs, in what circumstances?
Excuse me. Well, I feel that now we can chemical intensification or chemical treatments were generally done to regain density, lost information, and that we have so many other ways available to us to do that now. And that's just come about since I've been in the field. Digitally enhance an image to produce a facsimile, but I feel there are few cases in which, or maybe no cases, in which we need to do it. And again, it's a treatment that is not fully predictable. I'm aware of all the research that's been done and the history of it by conservators, by conservation scientists such as Klaus Hendricks, and worked with Klaus and did a lot of work with him in experiments. I feel that it's just we don't understand enough. It's unpredictable, that we don't need to do it. I know that a lot of people, the controversy is not over regaining lost information so much as intensifying fine art photographs.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, it's a lot of the treatments that we do are irreversible and don't leave, such as washing,
Mm-hmm.
don't leave records of themselves and would definitely be in the same category as chemical intensification, and we do those. So I agree with the moratorium that PMG imposed on chemical intensification, but I think that's something that we need to continue to talk about. I know people have very strong opinions on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'd like to say.
Thank you. So my next topic is about mounting photographs, and mounting photographs, and this as well has been done at different degrees, or
Mm-hmm.
in the past it was considered necessary to promote the stability of a print, and also
Mhm.
used to display individual objects, maybe from albums, so it has like a different
I remember.
a range of uses and steps. So I would like to hear your opinion. Nowadays, when do you consider that these practices can be justified? Or what's your opinion about this treatment in general?
It's interesting because you were asking before what things have changed in the field,
Mhm.
and I did mention mounting and unmounting, but that's because I knew what the questions were going to be. But we routinely remove things from albums, especially anything with black paper. When I was early on when I was in photo conservation, and unmounted and remounted things with new cores, sometimes with entirely new mounts, fairly regularly, feeling that that was the best thing. We were really worried about poor quality materials and adhesives, and I think just as we've had more experience and learn more about materials, we have more analytical methods, we just have more treatment experience under our belt, we do it less. And I don't think that it's really justified in very many cases, especially removing things from albums, only if it's necessary to treat the photograph or the album, and we almost always reassemble them. And if it's not possible to, say I just had some magnetic albums that were in fire, going to be removing the photographs, and we're going to be kind of creating the album using a modern photo-safe album, recreating the format for it as much as we can. The same with mounts. If we unmount things, we really try to preserve really just replace the component that is problematic, like the core. We generally only unmount and mount things if there's severe distortion, like the dry mounting tissue, or the whatever's bonding the photograph to the mount is failing, or there's severe damage, like breakage, it's really difficult to structurally stabilize a photograph
Mm-hmm.
without unmounting it.
Mm-hmm.
So we do it much less often because we're really much less focused on just the print than we used to be, and have a more holistic view of the mount, the surface qualities, the color, any inscriptions. Same with albums.
Mm-hmm.
And I especially, interdisciplinary, spread of knowledge, especially with work with photo albums that's been done, has been really, really beneficial to us in that way, giving us the information we need.
Thank you. So my next question is about modern and contemporary photography, and every day the tendency for bigger formats and the use of new materials, not only photographic but mounts, laminates, and many different things have been started to challenge treatment in this subject. So I would like to hear what has been your experience with this type of materials.
I haven't worked. I don't see as much contemporary material here as other conservators do. We get color, chromogenic color. We've had a few digital objects. We haven't had anything that's laminated. And it seems at this point that there's much less that we can do with them than we could with traditional photographic materials, and partly because of their inherent materials, plastic supports. But I also feel that as we learn more about them, we're going to be able to do more. We're going to develop more treatments, and that's kind of happening all the time, ways of mending them and flattening. But that the fact that the technology is changing so quickly, technology, materials, digitally, that also we're never going to catch up. So we'll never understand maybe inkjet prints in the way we do developed out photographs, which is it's kind of sad. But it's just going to be, I think it's going to be a fact of life for us.
Mm-hmm. And I have another question regarding contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when a photograph is severely damaged and if it's laminated or something,
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy to fix, it has been proposed to reprint photographs.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to hear your opinion about this. Do you think it's valid, or what are the...
I think it is. This is a decision, I think this could only, should only happen if the photographer is still involved in the photograph, is still alive and can be consulted. It's not a decision just for the owner and the conservator, and we have had this happen on several occasions. Things have been recently created and were damaged by framers and then came to us irreversibly altered. And reprinting them was a way to start over, but they involved a lot of negotiations. They were major decisions, very eye-opening experiences, especially the fact that everyone, including the photographer especially, took very seriously what happened to the photograph, the original print,
Mm-hmm.
and insisted on overseeing the destruction of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's good experience.
Thank you. So we've come to the final questions of the interview, which are about the treatment experience and future. Which are so I'd like to ask you: do you consider that treatment proficiency
Mm-hmm.
is central to the competences of a photograph conservator?
For someone who's going to be treating photographs regularly, I do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a requirement for every photograph conservator, because a lot of people do mostly management and preservation work.
Mm-hmm.
I think that everybody should have kind of a basic knowledge of treatment, otherwise you can't understand what the best options might be for the photographs under your care.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And it may not even be possible for everyone in the field to be proficient in conservation treatment. It's not possible just during the graduate studies to achieve that. You need to do that through years of training after that time. And it's if that's your job, then you can gain that experience, or if that's your fellowship, but not everyone can or needs to do that for their goals in the field.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there just probably aren't enough people to train everyone to be proficient in conservation treatment. And that kind of comes into the next question, I think, or later questions.
So this would come to the last question, and
Mm-hmm.
it's in terms of treatment, what do you consider are the major challenges that the field faces?
Major challenges. Oh, in terms of treatment. Again, to the training is kind of maintaining our level of competency. This is field-wide in treatment. There does seem to be a trend for people to do less treatment, and that's not bad. There's a lot of preventative conservation to be done, but it can be a downward spiral. If there aren't enough people doing treatment, there aren't enough people to train future people, and also it's not for in the public eye. The profession doesn't see it, isn't aware of it, and maybe does less of it. It just can naturally lead to kind of being a bit more conservative about treatment. A lot of people have spoken about that, I'm sure. Also, I think capturing the remaining information that there is about photo history, history of photography, materials, technical data, we need to do that because that's going to help us to be better conservators in the future, do better treatments, understand materials, and we're losing that, and that's just the pressure of commerce that's robbing us of this information. You know, such as processing chemistry, and we should also be trying to actually save the physical materials too. I'm just worried that our knowledge of developed down materials may end, or we may not be able to advance it at some point because we will have lost so much of that information. And then of course treating digitally generated output. We're going to have to work very hard to get all the information we need to increase our options for treatment for this material. We have to fight against the fact that a lot of it is proprietary information and that it changes so rapidly. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I
Sure.
deeply appreciate your time and your interest to perform this interview.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.